You're listening to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast, and this episode is part of our Agency Leader Series. My name is Shane Perkins, and I'm best known for leading acquisitions, deal making, and financing for Unite Digital, a unique and growing agency network specifically positioned to serve mid-market clients across the U.S. And I'm talking to mid-size agency owners across the marketing and advertising spectrum to uncover their top mind shifts, lessons learned, and insights that help them grow and manage their agency, as well as give you a chance to learn what partner and deal opportunities they are looking for right now that you can reach out about to explore possibilities to work together. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast, Agency Leader Series. Today, my guest is Dan Cobb, who's the CEO and Chief Strategy Officer with Daniel Bryan Advertising in Rochester, Michigan. Great to have you on, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Dan, I want to kick things off with a mind shift that you shared with me. And it was primarily about to add value to people's lives. The law of reciprocity will take care of us when you do that, meaning the agency. How is that a mind shift for you and help you take to the agency where you are right now?
Well, you have to have a philosophy for the kind of content you're putting in the marketplace to help clients. And the philosophy that we've grown over the years is discovering the law of reciprocity. When you are giving value to the customer, then the customer will give you value back. It's a simple concept. But in advertising, what do you do to add value? If you're simply asking for the sale, if you're simply saying, buy me now, I've got a better product, listen to my story, it just sounds like a lot of extraction. And what happens with the customers, they get worn out by that and feel a sense of you're just a taker. You want to take from me, and I'm now putting my guard up. Our goal with the customer is to add value by saying, here are the things that we believe in. Here are the things that we have passion about. Let us take a minute just to inspire you and to make a difference. And if we make a difference together, then we've now united around a cause. And rather than creating a sale, you're creating a movement, and the movement leads toward ongoing loyalty and the kind of relationships you want to have.
When did this mind shift happen? Like when in your agency life did it occur that actually helped you build to where, and what size are you right now in terms of agency size?
We're about a 50-person agency. We could scale up to 80 when we need to. It's about a $20 million agency to give you a sense of the scale.
Okay.
And we learned this when we were just trying to grow out of that 10 to $15 million range and trying to go to the next scale. We realized that there was another level for our marketing, and we were watching the clients that were getting results and the clients that weren't getting results, and we were doing other market studies to understand what was a differentiator for those brands. You look at the Nikes, the Apples, the traditional Starbucks brands you look at, and why did they stand out? They often have a kind of universal philosophy that they all stand around. And that philosophy is typically around making a world of difference in some form or another. So we formed our statement, better brands for a better human condition. It's the brand like a Nike who isn't just selling the cost of the shoe, the leather it's made out of. They're focused on what they stand for, inspiring athletes to make a difference in the world. Or Apple is about thinking different when they made their great breakaway in the 90s. And it wasn't just about their megahertz and processing speeds and things like that. It was about the difference they were going to make by the product they created and the people they were going to make that difference with. That's what our brands are about, is building those kinds of movements.
So what revenue point were you hitting that was hard to get over, that required that mind shift? And then once that hit, did that break you through to another range that you knew that you could kind of compete at the next level? And did that change the client type too?
It changed the client type immensely because not all clients are there. A lot of clients are retail sales clients. They want to discount. Those types of clients give you lots of work and they keep you busy, but they're really in a race to the bottom. So the margin gets more difficult to maintain over time. So we really found a better, healthier client by going after this type of client. When they're focused on bringing value to the product, they can now charge a premium. People are willing to inconvenience themselves to buy a product that stands for something. And so we found that our clients got healthier, and when our clients are healthier, then we're healthier. What it got us away from is that client that was on the race to the bottom on price, where they were a coupon brand and they were discounting against Walmart, and you can't beat Walmart in a discount race. So you really have to find a way to differentiate on value, and that's the value we determined would be our niche.
My team and I have a lot of talk about mid-market companies and them finding a different way to compete than price and what all the big guys are competing on. Is that have you found that you've shifted towards working with a lot of those companies and applying this philosophy to them?
Yeah, a lot of our clients have that same philosophy. We work in healthcare, banking, franchising, and a lot of our clients have common values with us, and it gets them excited about what they're going to do. When you launch a campaign with a brand that traditionally was discounting on price, let's say it's a pizza, and you suddenly realize this pizza is not just going to compete with the $5 hot and ready that's out there and maintain its quality. You've got to have a differentiator. And so we went after, for example, with Hungry Howie's Pizza, we created a pink pizza box in the month of October and promoted love, hope, and pizza, awareness for breast cancer, making a difference in our community, those types of things. And maintained a higher price point, didn't have to discount the pizza, and gave a percentage away for a cause that mattered. And sales went up 23%.
Wow.
So you can make a difference, sell more, and at the same time have a better margin than what you had before, maintaining a higher quality product.
So what, ultimately, if you're, I see a lot of agencies that are struggling with below that $10 million mark. Is there kind of a shift in levels? To get to 10 million, you typically deal with these type of clients and do this. To get to 20, you have to, and that mind shift can get you to that next point. How would you describe other agency owners that are kind of stuck in that transition point?
Well, it's finding a niche. When you start getting to the bigger brands, you have to have a specialty. For us, it's healthcare and franchise retail. Those are the two strong niches for our agency. So when we go into a healthcare client, for example, we're not just selling them all the different work we've done in many industries. We can show consulting level expertise in helping a healthcare brand grow. When we go into a franchise organization, we can show them how to increase franchise fees and how to work on the discounting programs in a way that they can get the better margins and experience from previous clients. So really our next level of growth, and when we began, we took any job we could find. That's the way to start any company. But eventually you start realizing you're better at certain things, more passionate about those things. And we had to narrow in our niche and become an expert at those areas.
What was that one thing, in addition to the mind shift, that I guess the one thing that you could look back on and say, yeah, that really drove most of our growth from, 10 to 20, or at least propelled you guys to that point? So I've seen other agencies that are, 50 employees, still even at half the revenue size. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
It was, for us, it was a scalable product. We created a television show for the healthcare industry called The Minds of Medicine. As thinking outside of the box of a traditional 30-second spot, we made a half-hour TV show for a client, and the show became a monthly episode, and then it became an episode that was wanted in other markets. And so we started doing that for hospitals across the country and health systems, and that was really a launch pad for us because it became a scalable product that we had. It didn't require re-engineering and brand new thinking every time. We could just take this thing somewhere else, repeat the effort, and find results. So that became a kind of a product that moved us into a larger national presence and introduced us to a lot of different brands.
Got it. That's interesting. I'll have to note that for another conversation as scalable products. Let's learn more about your agency. You said you started as a traditional ad creative shop. You became a full service brand experience consultancy and digital firm. That's what you originally designed. What was that journey? How long ago did you start? What were some of the challenges? And I'd love to hear kind of the top lessons you learned since then.
So we started in 92. Back in 92, it was really revolutionary to have desktop publishing and have a computer that can make texts and graphics. So At that time, we were just I was a computer nerd, so I felt comfortable jumping in that space and bringing my art direction skills there. So we were really on the cutting edge of what was happening when the internet broke out and we started doing things online. And as things started changing, we started realizing that we needed to become about measurable results. A lot of our clients were asking, well, how does this $1 million translate to sales? And when you get to that review time, you had to have really good answers for that. So we started creating trackable mechanisms, direct marketing mechanisms, cost per acquisition tracking systems. And it changed the way we did marketing so that we could go to our client at the end of the year and say, well, we put this money in and you got a 5-to-1 return on your investment over here. And we can track that back to whether it's appointments with healthcare or it's pizza sales with a retail shop. But we would track it directly to sales and results. And then we'd also have the branding, which is much more difficult to track to your sales, but we would make sure to find a way to say, if you're not doing your television air support, then the ground troops aren't going to be able to invade. There's no way to actually close that sale without that piece. And we started learning and tracking assumption models. We started learning that if you didn't have the TV at the high level, you wouldn't get even half the results at the call to action level. So you can't just have a sale without a brand. You got to have a brand there first. So we learned a lot about the analytics.
So that helped you. So you started as a traditional ad creative shop. I see a lot of shops that are still there that haven't transitioned, into the more so full service space, or maybe more measurable results. Like how did you make that transition? Was it something over time that you evolved into? Was it a series of kind of immediate things you're able to implement? How did that work?
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. You get a client who wants full service and needs full service, and you see the opportunity, so you add the services they need, whatever those might be. When I started out early on, I was just an art director. I was a designer, and I did a lot of designs for clients. But I noticed the designs had to go to media. It had to be put into the ether, and we didn't have any skill set in that area. So I would find someone in the market who had that skill set. Someone small, maybe typically a tenth of the size of us, start building up the media capability. And eventually media became a good third of our business. And so then we started building analytics. We started building the ability to do consulting and strategic thinking for our clients. So we added outside consultants at first, just by the hour. And eventually when those consultants became more expensive than a full-time person, it was time to hire. So that eventually led us to having a full service agency.
So transforming into the full service agency, what are the top, let's say, 3 lessons you've learned that you got to share with other agency owners and executives from starting way back when? What would you like to share?
Every time you win a piece of business, there's a clock on it. The clients like to shift and find new creative, and you want to service them with all your heart and do your best to keep that client forever. But the reality is there is a desire to constantly learn from new agencies and try new experiences. And regardless of how well you service it, you need to be staying with your new business model. You need to be constantly looking at what you're going to do next, because that client may not necessarily stay. Example would be, you may build the best relationship in the world with a client, but then an average marketing director stays about 2.5 years. So your marketing director that you built that relationship with is not going to stay. And when they change, the new marketing director wants a new agency. And you have to start living with that as a reality and realize that you're in the new business business. And that's what.
How often does that happen? For example, I just saw a merger between Raytheon and I think it was United Technologies, huge defense and aerospace. So they're doing a stock merger. When things happen like that, from your experience, when do you see the CMOs want to change directions on the agencies that are supporting them?
Well, they change more often than they should. Cohesive branding that lasts for 5 to 10 years at least is the best model, but you're likely to go through 3 or 4 marketing directors in that same time period. And every marketing director, they feel their objective is to change. They're not to keep what was done the last week when the other guy was let go. They're there to make something new. So typically they're going to change it. And the agency's job is to hopefully keep some reminiscence of what the brand was so that there's consistency for the customer, because customers who see a brand change every 2.5 years don't trust that brand. So our goal is to try to keep some consistency in spite of the change going on internally within the organization.
Got it. And so what are the other, let's talk about 2 more lessons learned that you had.
Okay. Analytics. That would be 3 lessons. If you get what's going on today, clients are asking for more than how many impressions did you get, because they can't impress the C-suite with that answer. We got 1 million impressions or 10 million impressions. Either one doesn't matter a whole lot when sales are down. And so we need to be able to follow through and say, these impressions led to these clicks, led to these sales, led to this revenue. And that chain is not easily built because the agency can't do it by itself. It's a partnership with the client, and you need to help them work with their IT department. You need to build relationships so that you're able to actually connect the dots from the advertising to the website. And if the website manager is not interested in the relationship, you won't have that access. And so you won't get that information, and neither will he, because we're not connected to each other. So the relationship is really the most important piece in building that technological ecosystem.
And let's say for agencies that are smaller than you, let's say doing 10 million or lower in revenue, what are some steps that they should take in terms of analytics? If they're let's say a typical kind of ad creative agency that haven't really gone full service and aren't really going into tracking things, what are some actionable steps that you could recommend for them to start with to, I guess, be more accountable for their clients?
Well, the basics is get your Google Analytics going from the website links and follow through on looking at them and reporting on them. If you're waiting for the client to bring it to you, they usually bring it when they're in trouble and they've been asked to report to somebody about why they're not getting X or Y. If we're proactive and we've been giving those reports, it won't be a real struggle to get that information. It'll have been built. And really, it's about putting the tracking pixels from the ads that you're creating onto the web portals that your client is using for measurement. And it's one way to measure. Websites aren't the only way. Apps and walk-ins and all those other elements are. But you should start with Google Analytics first. That's the basics.
Ultimately, if they're working with, I see a lot of them have partners that they're working with, like other media firms, for example. What should they tell their media firms to make sure that they're holding them accountable to produce results? So I guess basically, so they're working together. Do you have any recommendations on that?
I've found that it's very difficult if you are not a full service firm to get the full picture, if you're not involved in every piece of it. If you're simply one piece and you're doing the ad or you're just the media, it's really going to be very difficult. You have to build that relationship across all pieces of the relationship. And now clients are breaking up many times the agencies into your digital agency, your traditional agency, and in your search agency, your web agency, you name it. And once that's happened now, getting them all to share data together is difficult because many times they see themselves as competitors. So if you're able to find a way to be that relational connector to say, trust me, we're going to share this so that for the benefit of us all, let's work together and make this work, you're more likely to get data to help the client for the sake of all of you. Because over time, if none of you has data because none of you was willing to share with each other, you're all fired. And that's not good for any of us.
So from an action step plan, if let's say it's an ad or creative firm, and they had a media firm, they had, I guess, a digital firm, would you recommend that they be kind of the point person for the client and say, hey, I'd love to help coordinate with everybody else, and maybe they're in touch with the media firm and then the digital firm, and what do you think there?
Yeah, I think ultimately the changes that took place over the last decade has created specialization. And in some ways that was good because the traditional agency couldn't perform some of the digital services. But specialization has now become the enemy of integration. Because you have these disparate firms now working many times against each other, saying, no, you should spend all your money in digital. You should spend your money in traditional. You should spend your money over here in radio. Guess what? It just so happens they all recommend their own platform, which they are an expert in. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've tried to do is be in that position of the lead agency, which is what you are able to do to look at the whole view of it,
Okay.
and find ways to be financially incentive regardless of which direction it goes. And we think that's the way our clients should be hiring us, is that there should be a lead agency, and then there should be other services, whether it's the creative service, or maybe you can break out some of the media, which is more difficult to do because media is so integrated
Mm-hmm.
into the lead analytics system. But ideally, you find that place where you're able to explain the importance of it, and that also is important for growing your business. As you're now the lead agency making decisions, you have a lot more view to what's going on.
And then if somebody's running let's call it a media agency or tech agency, and they're working through integrations and all that, if they're not the ad creative agency, how do they play nice with the I guess the person wanting to run the show and say, yeah, maybe they should they think I should probably be in a supporting role instead of trying to own the whole picture because I'm really fit in this one area? What do you think there?
Well, ideally, you find a niche that they are not good at, that
Okay.
they don't do. For
That
us,
the ad creative firm isn't good at?
Whatever the lead agency, if you're not the lead agency, you want to be specialty. We did work for Chick-fil-A. So for Chick-fil-A, they had a lead agency, and they were doing just fine, and they had all those pieces. So our relationship with them built around doing toys and doing activations in stores, and we created things like the daddy-daughter date night events. And so then we became the agency for activation and local store relationship building with the consumer community and things like that. It was something that the big agency wanted nothing to do with. It was too cumbersome. It was a lot of work, and they felt, let's just leave them alone. And it ended up becoming a big part of our business.
And then you coordinated basically did you coordinate with the other agency running everything, or did you coordinate with the client to say that this is really where we think we should fit? How did you guys play there?
Yeah, we coordinated with them many times. They would place the media, we would do the creative, and they would post the content. We in many ways we were just running on a separate game and a separate race. So it wasn't really that much integration for us because of what we did was so different. Most agencies don't know how to design toys to be child safe. There were a lot of things they said, well, that's just not our thing. So it really was a very friendly relationship because we just ran in different lanes.
Got it. I want to take a shift over into a few things before we wrap up. And one part is about agency growth. I want to know kind of what your guys' plans are over the next 3 years, given where you're at now. You share with me that your goal is to double revenue over the next each time over the next, I guess, every 3 to 5 years, to double revenue. What's your approach to doing that, and how do you plan to get there?
So retaining talent and retaining happy employees, it requires a certain amount of growth. If you don't have a growth opportunity within the agency, you start looking around. And so we want to be the kind of agency where our growth pattern is aggressive enough to make people want to stay because they see their future growing with the agency. The model we've seen is a 3 to 5 year doubling model. It takes that kind of pace to keep the employees feeling like they're keeping up. Otherwise, you're going to get more turnover. So that's about employee health in the agency. And so now you've got this high bar to set. You've got to double every 3 to 5 years to keep your employees happy, or you have to get used to turnover. It's one or the other.
Okay.
And we don't like turnover. We like our people. We want them to be like family. So our goal is to find that business. It gets more difficult each time we get to a new doubling level. And now we have to think about, okay, what is doubling in the next 3 to 5 years? We got to look at $10, $20 million accounts. It's a different category. We're competing at a higher level now.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Interesting. So if we're moving into, one of the ways you are going through growth, what do you think about growing through acquisition, and what have you done or not done in that area to help you guys drive growth?
We've done several things. We found a little group of a couple guys in California that were doing a great job with movie launches. They were involved in the launch of The Passion of the Christ and The Chronicles of Narnia and some really cool grassroots launched campaigns. And we said, well, you don't have a real company yet, but would you like to have one?
Mm-hmm.
And we would be willing to fund that, build out the space, staff the people up, and take this model bigger. And so we did. We created West Coast office in LA off the Pier Santa Monica, and it was called DBA West. That campaign that we launched was, I believe, Winnie the Pooh was the first Disney film we launched, and then we got to The Hobbit and several others. And we really built a cool social media campaign for each one of these film launches. What we learned in that is that you can take two guys who are really starting to make something happen. You can grow it to what then became a multi-million-dollar platform for our agency and a new feeder for the business that was actually being developed in Detroit, which is kind of fun when you have an LA office and you get some work going back and forth between Detroit and LA. It made for a really unique kind of relationship there.
How did you find them and identify that they were just a group of guys that were worth investing in? How did that come about?
Well, we were doing it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. The Minds of Medicine show that we were doing was a TV series that was quite successful and a market by market level. We went to Hollywood to bring it to the Creative Artists Agency, and they started representing us as a producer. So we went from agency to producer guy. And so when we were there in Hollywood, just meeting with people, we ran into these individuals who were doing some unique marketing models and just made friends. And once
they're like solo guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when you find someone that you like what they're doing, sometimes you just have to say, hey, we should do some coffee and talk, and it led to a really interesting conversation. To this day, they do a lot of really cool work for us out there.
So if we could summarize that part, essentially, I mean, keep your eyes open to the talented individuals you see, open your mind up to opportunities to expand and see if you can make a deal together, test it out. And so you guys started just with like a group of, I don't know, a few producers or videographers. And now like, what has that grown into over time?
Well, we ended up to like 20, 30 people just in our LA market for a while.
Wow.
What happened was they would grow up and then they would shrink. So when I say we're 50 and we grow to 80, it's that market in LA where if you have a movie launch, you'll grow really quick and then it shrinks back down. And so that was one of those markets where it just got to a point where we didn't have a movie for a bit, so we shut it down. And then we grow it back when we have another movie. So it's a unique market. It's not as stable as the healthcare industry. Hollywood film launches are off and then on again more often.
And then before we wrap things up, I'm curious about the deal structure. What did you tell those guys? And then, how did you set the vision, what they could look forward to and how it would work?
What we did is we created geography. We said, this is the geography you're going to focus on, and you can have X percent of that business in that market. So based on profits, we would distribute profits to them and then to the agency. So it acted somewhat like a franchise, but it was co-owned in that marketplace. We've done several relationships like this. We find the best ones are when you combine with a group that does something non-competitive. For example, PR. You may find a small PR group and then partner with them on some projects. And we've done that as well very successfully because it's very obvious who does what. We don't do PR, they don't do advertising. And it keeps the lanes really clean.
Got it. Now, since we're on deal opportunities and getting close to wrapping up, I wanted to know what partner and deal opportunities are you looking for your agency to help grow?
So we are growing into more of a consultancy right now. Our agency has become very strong in helping our clients form their visions, their brand experiences, their service experience, their corporate citizenship values and goals. And in doing that, we've now become more of a consultant than a creative firm or a media firm. And so we are looking for organizations who also play in the consultancy world, who might be willing to partner with us to go after a piece of business, because that is very helpful for us. rather than bringing it on full time, it might be better for us to have partner groups that we work with in doing such a thing.
And if you could narrow down on size, location, how what would you say there? Who your ideal target would be?
We like working with other businesses that are our size. So a consultancy that is, especially in the healthcare industry or retail business, that is in the range of 10 million, 20 million in revenue would be ideal. But I also find that you could work with a $1 billion consultancy, an Accenture or a Plant Moran or a EEI or someone like that. You could do quite well being their partner and creative execution team member. We like more on par relationships if we can do those instead, though.
Got it. Okay, great. Now, Dan, what is the best way for our listener to get in touch with you in case they have any questions, or could connect with you on some deal opportunities that you want to do?
You could email me at dcobb@danielbryan.com. That's DCOBB at DANIELBRIAN.com.
Awesome. Cool, Dan. All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap up our call for today. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency podcast with Dan, Cobb, and I.
Thanks for listening to our Agency Leaders series on the Build, Buy, Sell Agency podcast. Please contact our guests from the links in the episode's show notes if you think there is an opportunity to work together. I recommend mentioning you found them through this podcast episode to catch their attention. Now, if you run a mid-size agency whose bread and butter are mid-market clients, and you are interested in divestment, exploring your exit options, or driving accelerated growth via strategic collaboration with complementary agency partners, then you may be an amazing fit for our agency network, Unite Digital. Please go to unite.digital/apply to schedule a live discovery call with me so I can understand your goals for your agency and yourself, as well as share the vital benefits of operating within our network at Unite Digital to ultimately determine if you could be a fit to join and thrive within our agency network.